Well, history was made along the Oregon coast this weekend. A surf spot in Lincoln City played host to the state's first ever professional surfing competition. In this 2 exclusive, K2's Tim King brings us some incredible views of the action at the coast.
They're like 20, 25-foot faces, light offshore winds all day. You know, the competitors were blown away by the quality of the wave. You know, they're all saying it's, some of them were saying, these are world-class athletes saying it's the best tow sessions they've ever had.
Waves reaching heights of 30 feet set the stage for the first international tow-in surfing contest at Nelscott Reef off Lincoln City. These waves aren't the kind a surfer paddles into. Instead, wave runner watercraft launch the surfers into the waves.
On towing, it's deceptive because you're getting into these waves with speed, you know, behind the wave runner, you're releasing and you're already on top of the wave. So you don't realize how big it is. You know, you're just, you know, you're running for your life a lot of times, but you don't realize how big it is until you take the hit.
Most surfers Sunday avoided the big hit. Instead, they took advantage of near-perfect conditions to put on a show that drew participants from all around the world.
I think the climate, you know, 20 years ago used to be, you know, keep the Californians out of here, you know, these are our ways and all that. I think the climate has changed, and you know, nobody owns anything. You know, it's the ocean's there for everybody.
30 surfers competed in Sunday's international event, with a pair of brothers from Santa Cruz taking home the honors.
Jake and Zach Wormhout got first. Shane Desmond, Tyler Fox got second. Peter Mell, Anthony Tashnik got third, and Jeff Clark, Mike Brummett got fourth. Jason Garding, who's only been towing with me for 2 years now, held his own. In individual scoring, he came in 8th.
How big were the waves?
They were about 20-some foot faces, rarely some 30 foot. It wasn't that big. It was high performance though. It was fun, a lot of fun. I can't believe everything came together. I mean, that was the story going around. That's how is that all gonna? The stars are gonna have to align for this thing to work, you know.
In Lincoln City, Tim King, K2 News.
In tonight's stories from the front, Oregon soldiers versus the Taliban. Only on 12, SalemNews.com's Tim King reports on how forces are attacking U.S. bases.
Soldiers at an American combat base in the Kunar province of Afghanistan called Camp Joyce run a tight ship. Only 6 Americans operate this facility as embedded training team members. They train and fight with soldiers from the Afghan National Army.
Snow Cap Mountain is, we've been hit with 107 rockets, been launched there.
Major Fernando Rodriguez is the commanding officer of Camp Joyce. He works closely with ANA forces in coordinating the base mission, and he says it is not unusual for Taliban forces to use mortars as well as rockets when attacking their remote outpost. Sergeant Major Kemp Friend deals with the clash of cultures. Not only do the Americans and Afghans have to work together, but they also have to squash old ways left behind by a recent occupying army. The damage that the Soviets dealt Afghanistan is still visible everywhere in this country. But backward ideologies left by the Russian communists are slowly beginning to fall into the background. And that is happening in part because of people like Lieutenant Dan Houardine, who work closely each day with the Afghan army.
Not only do we fight side by side, we're friends. I mean, not only are we soldiers beside each other, not only have we been in combat together. We may be from 1,000 miles away, but in our hearts we're the same people.
This is a base that's frequently attacked at night. There's a good reason, too. Pakistan border is about 2 miles behind me. Around 9:45 p.m., American gunners laid into suspected Taliban position. Using 2 .240 machine guns and a .50 caliber, these soldiers lit up the night with tracer rounds, hoping to silence Taliban activity, which had been reported for the 2nd consecutive day on the hillside. The Army team at Camp Joyce is on the verge of being replaced by a company of U.S. Marines. The base is named for Marine Lance Corporal Kevin Joyce, who was killed here in June of 2005. Now his Marine brothers will carry on the work of these dedicated soldiers. Near the Pakistan border in the Kunar province of Afghanistan, Tim King, Fox 12 News. An Oregon woman protesting a National Guard deployment to the Iraq War at the Oregon State Capitol was arrested Friday night by state police troopers. Advocates say Michelle Dar's civil rights were violated, and that list of advocates taking part in the peace vigil on the Capitol steps now includes an Oregon soldier who was part of the scheduled deployment.
I volunteered to go with this deployment you know, so that as a soldier, so that as other soldiers will have troop strength, and you know, and now I'm going to protest the deployment, and it's kind of weird. It's going to seem kind of hypocritical, but it's because there's two sides to somebody in the National Guard.
There's already been a precedent case in 1983, United States versus Grace, in which it was established that the First Amendment, it was very difficult to limit the First Amendment on grounds that are traditionally reserved for traditional public forum.
Attorneys say the state laws that allowed police to arrest Dar conflict with federal laws that grant the public rights to access public property.
Restrictions on freedom of speech or freedom of assembly or whatnot, they can be made, but they have to be reasonable, and they have to be for a compelling state reason.
So we have a few questions as to, you know, why he would delay such important information for these families that are, you know, laying in wait this holiday season.
April's coming up soon.
Yeah, and I heard that pre-deployments are already starting, or imminently starting. And so to tell us that, you know, wait until the third week in January, I personally have an issue with that.
Michelle Dar says Oregon soldiers deserve better, in her opinion, than to be sent to Iraq on another year-long deployment. She says people like Private Richard Portelli are stepping forward to join her, and she hopes Oregon's elected officials are listening. In Salem, I'm Tim King, reporting for SalemNews.com. These U.S. Army soldiers with the 101st Airborne in Iraq are about to make a big difference for the life of one local citizen here. People in this faraway land of war and hardship have few alternatives when it comes to things like wheelchairs. And to help change that, one soldier's family in Minnesota decided to take matters into their own hands, and they've been sending a number of these into Iraq to help the local people here.
Iraq has one of the highest percentage of handicapped people in the world, and they just don't have the facilities or the medical doctors to, you know, basically give care to all these people.
Sergeant Jonathan Fondo's parents in Park Rapids, Minnesota, have already sent several wheelchairs along with medical supplies to this Mideast country.
I talked to my mom back home in Minnesota, and she had asked if I could use some items such as clothes, shoes, medical supplies, and I said yes. Well, of course, the word spread, and people volunteered from all over back in Minnesota, from my dad's church to you know, just other families in our local town and community. And since then, I've handed out probably over 100 boxes, 5 different wheelchairs. There's also some medical supplies in there as well.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
The hearts and minds of Iraqi people may be coming about thanks more to the acts of individual soldiers than U.S. government policy and politics.
The word's getting out that what we're actually doing here, you know, affects not only the people of Iraq, but us as well, because it's about building relations with the people.
Just gives the message that we care. We care. We're here to help them. We're not here to hurt them at all. We want to help them, and you know, I think that's a message they get, at least in this area. They're pretty good about it. They're getting it, you know, and they like us. You know, so I mean, we have a good relationship with them here. That's a nice cheer.
In Abu Sakur, Iraq, I'm Tim King, reporting for SalemNews.com.